Good morning, John. Recently, OpenAI closed down its AI-generated scrollable video app Sora. Even after it spent multiple days on the top of the App Store back a few months ago, something about this app was entirely unsustainable. Meanwhile, Disney has abandoned its partnership with OpenAI in what feels like a bit of a, oh good, perhaps nature is healing kind of way. But then, at the same time, a series about sexy fruit people called Fruit Love Island is popping off on TikTok, hitting 3 million followers in like 10 days of posting. So perhaps nature is not healing. Perhaps nature is on fire. Perhaps, as the medium youngs say, we are cooked. John, all of this has been fitting into a thing I've been thinking about a lot, and despite the fact that this is a part of culture that's very difficult to touch without getting burned, I'd like to actually ask the question, what is slop? Because there is definitely a thing that is slop. Like, it's not just like a mean word to say about AI stuff. It's a real thing, and it might actually be somewhat easy to draw a line around it, which makes it weird that I've not seen anyone try that yet. Or maybe it's actually hard because we'd all like to believe that Fruit Love Island is slop, but I'm worried that it's actually not.
Listen to me, if you don't get out of here!
No, that's slop. But what if it isn't?
There's a murderer among us.
So when you think, what is slop? The first thing you're going to think is AI. The second thing you're going to think is probably something to do with effort. Like slop is synonymous with low effort. Last night, I came across a video of a kid doing a really cool dance on Instagram, and I wanted to share it with Catherine. But then I stared at it for like 2 minutes, pausing on a bunch of different frames to make sure it wasn't AI, and it wasn't. That kid doing that dance was very impressive and cool, but if it was AI generated, then even if it was the exact same video, it would not be impressive or cool. Like, the reason it's cool is that this video contains, this one dance he did, but it also contained all of the work that that kid has done and all of the talent that that kid has. Whereas this AI video of 2 people doing the cowboy boogie dance is not impressive. People think that it is because they think that it is real, but it isn't. So it isn't. But low effort isn't actually the same thing as slop. God, this is annoying, but it is true. As an example, if this video had a bunch of background noise and I needed to clean it up 5 years ago, that would have been much harder than it is now. AI tools are pretty good at cleaning up sound, and no one would think that this video would be slop because it was lower effort because an AI tool was used. And that's because some things are created for utility. If I'm using a tool to clean up audio on a video, I do not care how hard the tool worked. I do not care whether a programmer spent half their life making that tool or whether it was created by Claude in an afternoon. I just care how easy the tool is to use and how good it is at its job. And I think this is part of why AI in code has been mostly, weirdly, kind of fine. Like, not totally uncontroversial, obviously, not totally unproblematic, obviously, but there has not been like a giant culture-shattering backlash to what if programmers use AI to write some code, because code, for most people, most of the time, is almost entirely utility. And I think this is why the reception to AI art-like things have been much more backlashy, and why the word slop is much more likely to be aimed at writing or images or animation than at code. Now, is this fair to code and coders? Perhaps not. I'm describing the world as it is, not as it should be. This is how we are reacting to it. That's what I'm making the case for. So that was mostly all preamble, and now we move into the next section. Already, for quite a while, we have been in a world of infinite content, like practically infinite content, and in a world like that, the qualities that make one piece of content better than another piece of content are important. Now, what are those qualities? There are many of them. Some of them are simply utility, but there's more to it than that. Generative AI, which makes it extremely easy to move from idea to piece of content, is going to be ramping this infinite nature of content up another couple orders of magnitude. And so, follow me on my thought process here, it is not surprising that we immediately identified and named the phenomenon of thing that was only created because going from idea to product is now very easy. And it's also not surprising that we don't really like that. We find that to be less appealing. Now, before I get into the more human reasons why, I also want to say that there's like an almost economic inevitability here. Given our previously stated world of infinite content, something has to be the distinguishing factor that becomes the reason one piece of content is preferable to another piece of content. And I apologize to the artists of the world, but when I say content, I do mean all art and also non-art objects that contain information. I'm sorry. That's the word we have. But things that are able to be easily produced by typing a prompt into a chat box will immediately stop being the kind of content that we prefer to other kinds of content. Humans are pattern matching machines. We can see things that look like something else after only like 2 or 3 examples of a style. And if something is very easy to create, then there will be way more than 2 or 3 examples quite quickly, and our brains will immediately devalue those things. I think this is in part because our minds will understand that not very much effort was put into that stuff, but I think just as much it is because there will just be lots of it. And if there's lots of something, it simply is less valuable. Like, it both is less valuable because there's so much of it, and is perceived to have less value because that's how we understand value. Like, things that are common are less valuable. So slop is basically any kind of content that is so easy to make that there is so much of it that it immediately destroys its own value, which is an almost inevitable outcome of the promised use case of generative AI. Now, I don't think it's the only use case of generative AI, but like a big promised use case is generative AI will make things easy to make. But anything that is easy to make will quickly come to be understood by people as slop by virtue of them being easy to make. The promised use case is it makes things easy to make. The result is either that thing contains utility and thus is doing a job, and it's just doing the job, or that thing is slop. Like, those are the 2 outcomes. That's just the economic case, but obviously there's more to it than this. Sometimes there is like a piece of this that is simply about utility, and I think generative AI can actually be good at that part. Sometimes, even if the content itself is kind of sloppy, if the idea is good, it can carry it forward, and then we at least like have something there doing that work. Like, for example, sometimes I'll be watching a YouTube video and the person speaking, this is a human being speaking, will say like, now here's the part that matters. And then they'll end that paragraph with, it's not just a mistake, it's a surrender. Or some other like super obvious generative AI-ism, but like ultimately, I kind of keep watching that video. I don't like discard that person as a potential creator because I do think they had the idea for the content. I'm trying to think through these issues. They're providing a tool that helps me think through these issues, even if it was in part or in whole, like the script was composed by generative AI. I'm like, okay, but like, I need to think about this and I'm doing the dishes. For like a less embarrassing, more direct example, like this video on Twitter had 25,000 likes and nobody was confused by whether it was real. They just thought it was funny that a cat flipped noodles onto its head. And that's not really a joke that's worth telling if you need to set up the scene in Blender, but it's worth telling if you just start typing it into a prompt. And for a lot of people, at least, it was worth watching. I'm not saying all of those likes were human beings, but some of them were. But for how long though, right? Like maybe just for the first few times. Eventually you see like the 30th video like this that's, you know, setting up a pretty funny little circumstance, but you realize it's just less enjoyable than the first one you watched. It's just slop now because it's so easy to make. It no longer feels worth watching. And Fruit Love Island, I know people hate Fruit Love Island, and like I don't like it, but like it turns out to be a pretty interesting case study here. Obviously this content is not for the sophisticated viewer, it's for children, but there is work going into it. I watched a bunch of Fruit Love Island. There are scenes, there are moments, there are choices that are made to intentionally build tension. There's music in the background that is intentionally designed to change the feel of the scene. I think, though I cannot be sure, that there are choices being made here by humans to make the story more compelling. Now, obviously, it's a billion times easier to make Fruit Love Island today than it would have been 2 years ago, but if you asked me to make Fruit Love Island, I probably wouldn't be able to do it. Like, I don't understand the audience well enough, I don't understand the tropes of reality TV, I don't understand the choices that they are making. I'd probably need to hire a couple of people to help with editing. Like, I don't think it's good, but I can see choices being made. I don't know if those choices are being made by humans, but effort, whether human or non-human effort, is like, I can see it in there. But it doesn't seem like the thing where I could like type a prompt into a chat box and then have Fruit Love Island come out the other end. Duplicating Fruit Love Island at this point probably would be pretty trivial, but not entirely trivial. However, it will get more trivial. And so if Fruit Love Island is not slop now, it will be soon. This is, I think, the most important case that I'm making in this video. As the ease of creating things increases, things that for a moment feel somewhat novel and valuable will feel less novel and less valuable, which is why I'm not particularly worried about Fruit Love Island. I'm worried about other stuff. I'm not that worried about Fruit Love Island. Now, obviously, there's a spectrum of the kinds of people and like why and how they enjoy media, but I think that people care about the stories around what they consume. I think that everybody knows that watching a video of two people AI dancing is different from an actual person moving their actual body. And I think that regardless, this transition like does a lot of harm. The faster it happens, the more harm it will do. It's hard. Like now we're all going to be asking ourselves all the time who is real and who isn't. Some real dancers will be scrolled past because they look too AI, while some people maybe who have already established themselves as real people who have real bodies might have more of a foothold and be able to hold on. And those people will become like an entrenched interest. I don't know. There's like a lot of different second and third order effects here. But I think that there is a chance, and obviously this can go in more than one direction at once, but there is a chance that part of what this will do is it will make us care about human effort more, not less. Like, we will be able to identify the weird choices, the more interesting leaps. We will care about why a person or a group of people made a bunch of collective decisions to end up in one place rather than another. And that part will have more value, because if the part that is scarce is the human effort, then I would think that it would make us care about the human effort part more, not less. Now, certainly, we, as a society, as a humanity, we're going to use these tools. But the part that will matter might be the part that can't be duplicated easily, because anything that is easy to duplicate will immediately lose value. And that goes for this hot watermelon man as much as it goes for normal men.
We're just normal men.
The things Gen AI makes too easy will either be utilitarian, which might be good, or they will be slop, which many, if not all people, will be less interested in, even in a world where no one cares about human effort, because human effort will remain the scarce thing, and we tend to prioritize and place value on things that are more scarce. If that seems too hopeful for you, I understand. I guess we'll see. John, I'll see you on Tuesday.